Well, here we go, a massive week in the stock market, probably the biggest week or the last big week in the year, and we're entering peak earnings season and there's a lot going on. This is the most exciting time because you guys invest into these businesses, and I'm sure this week and a few other weeks coming up, you will have some companies that you've invested in and you'll get to hear how they're doing, and as well as that, that will lead to some of these stocks making massive moves. So we'll have a look at that in a second. Just to shout out, if you are on the Patreon, I did drop an exclusive video on the Patreon yesterday, which was the stock request. We looked through Disney, Legal & General and Scottish Mortgage Investment Trust. So if you're on the Patreon, do go check that exclusive video out. It's about 20 minutes long. If you do want to join the Patreon to see the exclusive videos where there's 2 a week, the link is in the description. It's only £5 a month, and for what I try and put on there, I think it's massively worth it. So yeah, do go check that one out. We're getting stuck into this massive week for earnings. Before we get onto the mega US side, there's one stock on the UK that I want to point out very quickly, which is Airtel Africa. It's a stock that I've owned. I've owned this for about 2 years. It's been performing quite well since I've owned it, and unlike a lot of other stocks, when we've entered this kind of stock market crash, this bear market, and a lot of stocks have been downtrending quite a bit, this one has actually been holding up quite well. Now, this is actually a little bit annoying because I want to buy a bit more of this. However, the great thing is this business has financially performed absolutely amazing. The net income's up 30%, as you can see here. The revenue is up 12%, and that means that actually from a metric point of view, at 7 times earnings and a 3% dividend yield, the metrics are very similar to when I first bought it down here 2 years ago. So the really interesting thing with this one is that I think it's a great value stock and I want to buy more of it, but I just want it to come a little bit down on the share price, like a lot of stocks out there. However, there's part of me going, well, it's actually the same valuation as 2 years ago because the company's grown so much. Maybe I should buy. So yeah, anyway, Airtel Africa are reporting their half year 23 results on the 27th. So something to keep an eye out on there. I'll be keeping an eye out on them because I want to be buying more of that stock. But getting on to the US side of it, because this is where it does really kick off. Now today, Monday, you kind of have a bit of a rest day. This is like a preparation day, getting ready for the rest of the week. Tuesday to Friday is where it gets a little bit more mental, especially Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But yeah, Monday is a bit of the cooler day. The only really big one I'm kind of looking at on Monday is Logitech. I'm looking at Logitech because I own 2 similar companies in this sort of space and I want to see what kind of numbers they pull out. Now, Logitech had a big boom through the CV times, as you can see here. And very much like the 2 stocks that I own, it's had a massive pullback, 61%, and it's basically sitting at prices it was at pre-CV. Even though financially the company is, massively miles ahead of where it was, previous to that time. But it's having a few issues where net income's down as it's been hit by the logistic issues. It's got revenue down as it's been hit by a lot of the logistic issues and the slowing cycle and the tough comps that it's had. So I'm looking at Logitech, seeing if this is one of the first companies that's in this kind of space where it develops, a lot of computer parts, and seeing if they have a bit of a turnaround and a strong report of earnings. So this is a key one for me to be looking at for the likes of Turtle Beach and Corsair that I own. So I'm going to be looking at them guys. The next one is FedEx. So UPS. So UPS opens reports on the open on Tuesday. This is going to be really important to see because if you remember, FedEx came out and they actually reported forecasts saying that they're seeing massive drops in volume, and that's absolutely killed the FedEx share price recently, as you can see here, down 50%. So UPS has actually been holding up quite well. So it'd be interesting to see what report, because obviously if they say, oh no, we're actually doing all right at the moment, then we know that this isn't a economic problem, this is more of a FedEx problem. Or if UPS come out and say, oh, there's actually a bit of volume issues at the moment, then we know, okay, we're hitting a bit of a slower economy at the moment. So UPS is a key one to be looking out for. We've got GM, Coca-Cola, General Electric, 3M, which is actually quite an interesting dividend play at the moment, not going to lie. We've got JetBlue, Raytheon as well. And then after the close, we start getting really serious on the Tuesday. So we've got Microsoft. Now, I hardly ever talk about Microsoft, but I am a shareholder of Microsoft. It is one of my longest positions in the portfolio. I've owned Microsoft since around about 2017. And in that time, I went from an average of around about $70, $80, and then eventually I averaged up quite a bit. I think I'm sitting around about 120 average right now. But I'm somewhere like up over 140%, I think, something on Microsoft at the moment. So yeah, I bought Microsoft. I started buying Microsoft in 2017. I just looked at that as such a big blue chip, very safe business. The company was on fire. Revenue growth was amazing, profit growth was amazing. I was looking at it and it was like trading down earnings of like teen ratios. 18. It did go to 20. I was happy to buy around that 18-20p ratio, and I was like, I'm picking up one of the best big techs out there for below the market average, and the company's growing at like 10+% a year. Like, it was absolutely insane. I was like, this is easily going to be, double the share price in 5 years' time. And that's what happened. In fact, it was actually up even more than double the share price in that period of time, but unfortunately was hit by the market, but I'm still up over 100%. I would love Microsoft to come back down to, back into the teen range to buy it. We'll see if that ever happens. But the stock that is very similar to Microsoft that I'm seeing at the moment is Google. Google is deja vu of Microsoft for me in 2017, and I'm buying that opportunity massively at the moment, which actually leads us on quite nicely because the next stock we're going to be talking about is Google. So Google are reporting on Tuesday after close as well, so two big names there. Obviously I own Google. Google is, for me, like I just said, the Microsoft that I saw the opportunity from 5 years ago. I'm trying to buy Google into like a top 3 position. I would even be happy to make Google my top position. It'd be very hard for me to do that because I do have quite a chunky size in DraftKings, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. So we'll see what happens with Google. I think last time they reported earnings, the stock market took them quite negatively, even though I thought the earnings were actually pretty strong. So we'll see what happens there. From my point of view, I'm going to say a little bit of insider information. I've noticed recently that ad payments, or the money you get per ad that's shown on the YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel, has gone up dramatically from where it was a few months ago. So that could be a positive sign. We'll see what happens. Next one is Enphase. So Enphase, I've been tracking for a very long time. The problem with Enphase is that it's just been such a rich valuation. I was very tempted to kind of buy it down at this sort of period. I never did. And then what you had is like the energy crisis, and everyone was like, oh, renewable energy is going to be really important, and everyone jumped into Enphase. But I mean, at 177 times earnings, it trades at like 20 plus sales or something like that. And yeah, it's just a little bit of a rich valuation. The company really does interest me, but the problem is the how expensive it is. So I think that as much as this looks like a fantastic business, it's very much priced to perfection, so we'll see what happens there. Then we have another stock that I own that is Visa. We'll see what happens there. I think last earnings they had pretty strong earnings. Chipotle, Spotify. I know a few guys are playing Spotify. Definitely caught my eye a little bit. The only thing that put me off with Spotify is I wanted it a little bit cheaper and a little bit more growth. But yeah, Texas Instruments, Skechers, and then we move on to Wednesday. So Wednesday we've got Boeing. Boeing has been holding up a little bit more than what I thought it would. I thought it'd be sitting more around that $100 range, so it's doing okay. I think that obviously the big thing with Boeing, it has the massive advantage of when you're only one of 2 companies that are able to make commercial planes. It's one of the biggest moats you're ever going to have, and if it wasn't for that moat, I would, where Boeing would be right now with their reputation, I think they would be struggling massively at the moment. Well, they are, they have been struggling, but I think we'll be talking about Boeing maybe going out of existence, but because you've got such a strong moat, it's helped them massively. So yeah, Boeing, I'm keeping an eye on. I don't think I'll touch it. I've been considering it a few times, but yeah. We've got Waste Management, lovely dividend stock there. We've got Bristol Myers Squibb, same again, dividend stock there, a few guys are interested in. And then we move on to the Wednesday after the close, which is Meta. So Meta has already had a bit negatively priced in because of the Snapchat earnings. Really looking forward to seeing what Meta is going to come out with, because when you're down at 10 times earnings, there's a lot of negativity priced in. So if they come out with a strong earnings report, I'll be looking forward to that. And the thing with Meta that I'm really looking forward to is seeing how they're doing on the turnaround plan, introducing them reels, monetization, and seeing what's going on there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Meta's earnings. I would not mind. I mean, I'm already buying Meta at prices it was at. Hold on, we need to go further out. I'm already buying Meta down at price it was at in like 2017. So if we start touching prices in 2016 maybe, that'll be just absolutely crazy. I'll be buying that opportunity if it does drop, so we'll see what happens there. We've got Ford, T-Doc have had a rough period of time, so we'll see if they come out with something positive. ServiceNow is actually a really interesting company that I track but I don't own. And then moving on to Thursday. So Thursday before the open, Shopify. So yeah, these guys have been massively killed off, and the recent earnings that they've been bringing out haven't really been liked by Wall Street. So we'll see what numbers that Shopify come out with. We've got McDonald's, Caterpillar, MasterCard. MasterCard will probably move depending on what Visa did. Altria, Comcast, and then a big day on the Thursday. So we've got Apple. Apple's a funny one. We'll see what numbers they come out with, because the numbers have actually been pretty steady from Apple. The only problem is like the valuation. I think Apple's valuation is still, quite rich at the moment. And if it was for if Apple dropped back down to a bit more of a historic valuation, I think that, imagine what the indexes would be doing right now. But yeah, Apple's a big one because so many people rely on Apple, and depending on what Apple does will move the market massively. And then we go to Amazon. Amazon, obviously, they've had a tough period of time, so we'll see what happens with Amazon. Intel, a lot of people have been playing Intel as a bit of a turnaround play. Unfortunately, there's not much of a turnaround going on there. So we'll see what happens with Intel and see if they actually start posting some positive news that they are actually starting to move into a bit more of a positive direction. Their last earnings was the standout worst earnings for me. I remember when Intel's earnings came out in the last quarter, I remember looking around and going like, how did they not pre-announce these earnings? They were terrible. And then we've got Pinterest. Obviously, Pinterest is one I own. Same again, these guys already have a lot of negativity baked into that share price because of the Snapchat earnings. But last time I believe these guys came out with some decent numbers. So same again. Can we see positive user growth? Can we see revenue start moving back into a really good direction? International growth is key. So yeah, looking forward to Pinterest earnings. That's basically it on the Thursday that I'll be looking at. And then we move on to the Friday. We've got some of the oil stocks like Exxon, Chevron. AbbVie is a pretty cool dividend stock. I remember a few years ago that absolutely crashed, and that was actually a very good buying opportunity. So yeah, a crazy week for earnings. I'm sure you guys own one stock that was reporting earnings this week. Also not on this list is actually InMode, I believe. They're a little bit smaller than a lot of these guys, but obviously they've already pre-announced their earnings because they were that good. But we'll see what happens when they bring out their full earnings. The thing with InMode is sometimes when they pre-announce them and they bring out the full earnings, it does drop the share price, which is a little bit annoying. So we'll see what happens there anyway, but I'm looking forward to that one because we've already seen from the preliminary earnings they were absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I mean, it's a crazy week. I think I own eight stocks, I believe, this week that report earnings. So I'm going to be definitely going through a lot of conference calls this week. So yeah, Monday's my little break day, and then by the time we get on to Tuesday, I'll be playing catch up on a few of these earnings, and I'm sure there's potentially a few videos that we'll be making about some of these stocks that do report earnings. So yeah, crazy week. Have a good week, enjoy it. The market will very much move off what these businesses do, and if these report good earnings. I guess the really tricky thing here is that if we have good earnings, then it just suggests that we still have a very strong economy out there, and then the Fed carries on raising its rates, and then where does that leave the stock market? Or is the benefit that we do come out with some bad earnings right now, and if we have some bad earnings right now, then the Fed goes, okay, maybe we need to be a bit more cautious on the rates. So it's a bit of a weird situation this, where if we have good earnings, I mean, it'd be good for the businesses that they're still performing absolutely amazing, but could we have a knock-on effect with the Fed? And if we have bad earnings, could the knock-on effect be the Fed then puts in interest rates a lot lower, and then we have an economy that booms further down the line? It's a bit of a tough situation right now. But I think the most important thing is, as what we've been saying in the last 12 months, is just this is your time to be staring at your businesses that you own, and just making sure, even if the share price is ticking downwards, fundamentally they're still ticking in the right direction. And I think that's the big thing to be staring at in this period of time. And if you do get any gifts, any gifts on the share price absolutely dumping, and there shouldn't be, take them opportunities. So yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video anyway, guys. Have a good week, and I'll catch you in a bit.